The sound of fingertips tapping the cash register precisely echoed through the bustling diner during lunchtime. I, Christina Hansen, have been working as a waitress at Friendly Forks Diner on Duncan Street for 9 years. After handing back the change to the last customer, I paused for a moment to catch my breath. "Mom, aren't you done yet?" My 10-year-old son, Ryan, peeked out from the employees-only area. His light brown hair and big blue eyes resembled my late father. The manager had allowed Ryan to wait in the back during my shifts. "Almost done. Have you finished your homework?" I asked with a smile. Ryan nodded and proudly showed me his math worksheet. "I solved them all. But I have a question about history." I take pride in my son's academic achievements. After graduating high school, I had plans to go to college, but at 19, I got pregnant, and that dream was left hanging. Ryan's father left without taking responsibility, and I began my life as a single mother. After giving birth to Ryan, I managed to make ends meet by juggling several jobs. Yet, I never felt dissatisfied because Ryan is the sunshine of my life. "Can you wait just 10 more minutes? I'll help you with your history homework once I'm done." Then, my cell phone rang. I sighed as I saw the caller ID. It was my mother, Diane. "Christina, listen. We need to talk about the dinner party tomorrow." Diane's voice always had a demanding tone. "We're celebrating Jonathan's promotion. You're coming, aren't you?" I frowned. My brother, Jonathan, had always been the golden boy in the family, brilliant, sociable, and our parents' favorite child. Compared to him, I was always labeled as plain and boring. "Of course, I'll come. I'll bring Ryan, too." On the other end of the phone, I heard my mother sigh. "Well, that's fine, but make sure he behaves. Don't ruin this. It's Jonathan's special day." I swallowed my retort. Ryan was always well-mannered. "Don't worry," I said. "So, what's his fiancée, Tiffany, like?" "She comes from a very wealthy family of entrepreneurs." Mom's voice was filled with pride. "She's perfect for Jonathan. Graduated from Harvard, cultured, sociable." I listened to my mother's bragging while inwardly rolling my eyes. She always focused on appearances and social status. Being a single mother and a waitress, without a high education like Tiffany, I was always a source of disappointment for her. Mom had escaped the working class by marrying Dad, a man with a glamorous business career. After studying economics in college, he worked in investment banking, showing sharp analytical skills and foresight. He succeeded at a young age and became a senior manager at a major investment firm in his early 30s. Always expanding his investments, he made a fortune by investing early in emerging tech companies. His decisions were always spot on, and his colleagues trusted his intuition. By the time I was born, my father had already secured enough personal investments to quit his job and become independent. He bought a large house in the suburbs and provided Mom with all the luxuries she desired. She quickly became integrated into the local social scene, known for her refined beauty and hospitality. However, my father was never one to chase material success alone. His study was lined with philosophy books and literary works, and he volunteered at the local library on weekends. "Money is just a tool, Christina," he often said. "What matters is what you use it for." He was also passionate about charity, quietly contributing significant amounts to educational support and medical research. In contrast, Mom and Jonathan were enchanted by the outward aspects of social status and wealth. Surrounded by luxury jewelry and designer brands, Jonathan leveraged my father's connections to enter the finance industry. Dad supported his career but occasionally showed disappointment. "He only sees financial success," Dad once confided to me. "Money alone can't buy the true richness of life." Then, that day came. I was 19 when the pregnancy test showed a positive result. I had just submitted my college applications, filled with hope for the future. I thought my relationship was serious. But I still remember the color draining from my ex-boyfriend's face when I told him about the pregnancy. "I can't do this, Christina," he said. He never contacted me again after that. The day I told my family about the pregnancy, the living room was enveloped in an icy silence. Disappointment was evident in Mom's eyes, and Jonathan shook his head bitterly. To them, my choice was a threat to their social status. "What have you done, Christina?" Mom said with a trembling voice. The look on her face was one of fear, the fear of me crumbling the carefully constructed social image she maintained. Having a daughter who was a single mother was unacceptable in her world. Jonathan scoffed. "Typical Christina, always letting us down." But Dad was different. "It's okay, Christina," he said, placing his hand gently on my shoulder. "Life doesn't always go according to plan," he said as he hugged me. "But that's the beauty of it. I'm here to support you and the child." And he kept his promise. He secretly paid for my apartment's rent and set up an education fund for Ryan when he was born, without telling Mom or Jonathan. "This is for you and Ryan," he said. "To give him options, no matter what life he chooses." As long as Dad was there, we were happy. But one day, the winter Ryan turned 3, Dad suddenly fell ill. At first, I thought it was just a common cold, but the results from the hospital tests were severe. It was terminal pancreatic cancer. "You have 3 to 6 months, the doctor said quietly. I went to the hospital, squeezing in visits between shifts to care for him. Ryan sat by his grandfather's bed, drawing pictures and reading stories to comfort him. "Grandpa, I'll take care of you," Ryan said, gently stroking my father's forehead with his little hand. My heart nearly broke at the sight. A few days before Dad passed away, he gripped my hand tightly. "Christina, even after I'm gone, live strong," his voice was raspy. "I'm proud of Ryan. He's a wonderful boy. And you're a wonderful mother. Dad, without you, It's okay, you're strong," he said, smiling faintly. And then he quietly passed away. After his death, his estate was divided. Most went to my mother, with the remainder split equally between Jonathan and me. However, my share was placed in a trust fund Dad had established, to be used only for Ryan's education. This further fueled my mother and Jonathan's anger. For them, my choices were failures, and Ryan was just a mistake. After the funeral, Mom and Jonathan quickly returned to their normal lives. For them, Dad's wealth was a means to maintain their social status. She continued to live in a luxurious house, hosting lavish parties and collecting expensive jewelry. Jonathan tried to take over Dad's investment business, but he lacked Dad's insight and ethics. And Ryan and I were excluded from their world. They never helped us. Without Dad's secret support, we struggled financially. Ryan spent more time in daycare, and we had less time together. While Jonathan built his career and Mom boasted of his success, I added housekeeping jobs to my waitressing work. But Dad's love for us remained my support as always. Holding on to his memory, I had no choice but to move forward. On the day of Jonathan's promotion party, I stopped in front of the mirror in my apartment. A simple blue dress and a small pearl pendant Dad had given me, it was the best I could do. "Mom, how do I look?" Ryan asked, his tie slightly askew. "You look very handsome," I smiled and straightened his tie. Arriving at the upscale hotel, I took a deep breath at the entrance and squeezed Ryan's shoulder. "It's okay, Mom," Ryan said. "I know Grandma and Uncle Jonathan don't really like us." Ryan's expression was serious. "I'll be quiet, so it's okay." My heart ached at his words. A 10-year-old child had to think of erasing his own presence. Children are more sensitive than adults think. The venue was already filled with people, holding champagne glasses and engaging in lively conversations. Then, noticing us, Mom approached in perfect makeup and dress. "Christina, Ryan, you finally made it," she said with a cold smile. "Come on. Jonathan is waiting." Jonathan was wearing an elegant suit, laughing loudly with a champagne glass in his hand. Beside him sat an unfamiliar woman. She must be Tiffany. Dressed in a sophisticated silk gown, her perfect hairstyle and diamond earrings sparkled. "Jonathan, Christina and Ryan have arrived," she announced. Jonathan turned around and smiled, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. "Christina, I'm so glad you could come. This is my fiancée, Tiffany Brown." Tiffany stood up and faced me. She was tall and carried an air of refinement. Her warm brown eyes and gentle expression struck a chord with me. Something about her face seemed familiar, as if I had seen it somewhere before. "Christina, I'm glad to meet you," Tiffany said in a quiet voice. "I've heard a lot about you from Jonathan." She extended her hand, and I shook it. Her hand was warm, and her grip was gentle. "I'm glad to meet you too," I responded. Jonathan cut in between us. "Tiffany, this is my niece, Ryan." "Nephew," I corrected him quietly. "Ryan is a boy." "Of course, I know," Jonathan laughed. "Just joking." Tiffany smiled at Ryan and looked him straight in the eyes. "Hello, Ryan. I'm glad to meet you. What grade are you in?" "Fourth." Ryan was a bit nervous, but he managed to reply. "Yes, I'm in 4th grade." "That's a wonderful age," Tiffany said enthusiastically. "When I was about your age, I made a volcano model for a science fair." Her voice was calm, and she seemed experienced in talking with children. Jonathan cleared his throat impatiently. "Tiffany, could you get us some drinks?" I had a good impression of Tiffany. She seemed mild-mannered and thoughtful. It was surprising that she was engaged to someone as self-centered as Jonathan. Throughout the party, Mom and Jonathan talked endlessly about his promotion, his brilliant career, and their plans to buy a luxury apartment. They never tried talking to me or hearing my inputs. "Christina, did you hear?" Jonathan addressed me. "I'm becoming a senior executive next month. My salary is doubling." "Congratulations," I said. "Isn't that amazing?" Mom added proudly. "Education is important. You wouldn't get such opportunities with only a high school diploma." She looked at me and added spitefully, "Are you still working at that diner?" She asked. "Being a waitress forever, such a plain and boring job." I looked up, surprised. "I take pride in my work. It's a job that helps people." "Without going to college, what kind of future do you think you have?" Jonathan's voice was filled with disdain. Mom nodded in agreement. "Christina, you should think more about your future. Look at Jonathan. He's always moving forward." I felt a pain in my chest but didn't change my expression. I was used to being rejected by my mother and brother. Ryan's hand squeezed mine under the table. Tiffany was the only one who showed discomfort and coughed before saying quietly, "But I think jobs that help people are valuable." Jonathan looked surprised at her. "Well, that's true, but as a career." "Careers are individual choices," Tiffany said firmly. After a while, I stood up to go to the restroom, and Tiffany followed me. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I'm fine, I'm used to it," I replied. Tiffany was silent for a moment, then looked at me intently. "Jonathan told me things about you, but you're nothing like he described," she said quietly. "What did he say?" Tiffany smiled. "I'll tell you about it sometime." I just wish we could have talked more with you and Ryan, Tiffany said before she walked away. After she left, I was struck by a strange sensation. Tiffany's face flickered in my memory. I must have met her somewhere before, but I couldn't recall when or where. After dessert, Jonathan began his speech. He stood at the podium, microphone in hand, and raised his glass. Thank you all for celebrating my promotion. I especially want to thank my beloved fiancée, Tiffany, who has brought such wonderful light into my life. Cheers. He continued with acknowledgments of his success and the people who made it possible. Mom, sitting in the front row, looked up at her son with pride. And now, a word about my family, Jonathan continued. After Dad passed away, Mom has been my greatest supporter. He raised his champagne glass to her, and the room responded with applause. And here with us is my sister, Christina. Suddenly, he pointed towards my table. All eyes in the room turned towards me. I tried to smile, but Jonathan's next words froze me in place. As you can see, we've walked very different paths. She's a good example of the importance of education. He sneered maliciously. Having only a high school diploma and no higher education, she's unwanted by anyone. An unloved single mother. Does anyone want to take her off our hands? A strained laughter spread through the venue. My face was drained of color. Ryan's small hand gripped mine tightly. It's just a joke, Jonathan laughed, though some in the room laughed while many others looked uncomfortable. Mom took the microphone. Jonathan always has such a sense of humor, she said in a glossy voice. She's good at housework. Does anyone need a maid? It comes with a son, though. I sat frozen. Tears welled up in Ryan's eyes. Mom, he said in a trembling voice. I slowly stood up, holding his hand. Let's go, I said quietly. But just then, I saw Tiffany slowly standing up out of the corner of my eye. Her face was red, clearly holding back anger. She took a deep breath, walked up beside Jonathan, and took the microphone. The room fell silent, and all eyes were on her. Ladies and gentlemen. Dear guests, she began, emphasizing each word slowly. Today is supposed to be a day when I make a very important decision in my life. However, it's not the decision you all might think. Jonathan's smile faded, and he looked confused. Mom was frozen in place. First, let me say something about the speech Jonathan just made. Tiffany's voice was calm but clearly contained anger. The words directed at Christina and Ryan were cruel and thoughtless. I do not share such values, nor do I condone it. Jonathan started to speak, but Tiffany quietly raised her hand to stop him. In fact, I have something to tell you all, she continued, taking a deep breath. Christina and I have not met for the first time today. I looked up in surprise, and suddenly it all clicked in my memory. 4 years ago, she worked as a housekeeper for my grandmother, Helen. Tiffany's voice trembled slightly. I gasped. Of course, I remembered her. The large stone house and the kind old woman in a wheelchair, Helen Brown. I had visited her home for housekeeping duties, cooking, cleaning, and sometimes just to keep the old lady company. My grandmother had difficulty walking and needed a lot of help with daily life. Christina did more than just housework. She became a companion to my grandmother, caring for her with dedication while preserving her dignity. The room was utterly silent. She not only helped my grandmother but also assisted me, Tiffany added. Christina, you encouraged me when I was unsure about my path. When I became pessimistic, you always said, just take it one step at a time. Today, I run a business because of the encouragement you gave me. I remembered everything now. Helen's granddaughter, Tiffany. At that time, she was a university student and visited her grandmother's house several times a month. I would sometimes meet her on my house cleaning days and chat. And Ryan, Tiffany looked at my son. He was only 6 at the time, but he sometimes came with his mother to my grandmother's house. He would give my grandmother handmade cards and show her his drawings. She adored him. Ryan's eyes widened as he stared at Tiffany. I remember you, little boy, Tiffany said with a gentle smile to Ryan. You gave my grandmother your drawing. She cherished it so much. The guests at the venue looked at each other, surprised by this unexpected revelation. After getting engaged to Jonathan, I had doubts about his and Diane's cold and self-centered nature, especially their attitude towards Christina and Ryan. Tiffany's expression grew firm. I hoped they would change, but what just happened has completely shattered that hope. Tiffany slowly turned back to Jonathan, removed her engagement ring, and placed it in his hand. A murmur rippled through the venue. Jonathan, I won't get engaged to you, she declared quietly but firmly. The last words my grandmother said to me were that true value lies not in titles or status, but in how kindly one can treat others. You and your mom live contrary to that. Jonathan exclaimed suddenly. This must be a joke. Tiffany, what is this? It's no joke, Tiffany replied quietly. I'm just doing what's right. She then walked over to me and Ryan. I've been searching for that devoted and kind soul I met in that house for a long time, she said as she reached out her hand to me. Shall we go together? I wiped the tears from my cheeks and took Tiffany's hand. Ryan also stood up and took her other hand. Wait! Mom shouted. Do you know how much this party cost? Tiffany turned back and said quietly. I will cover all the expenses. Please send the bill to my office. The three of us left the venue, with Tiffany gently guiding me and Ryan. Outside under the bright moonlight, I breathed deeply as if I were breathing freely for the first time. Unbelievable, I whispered. Was what you said about Grandma Helen really true? Ryan asked excitedly. Tiffany laughed. Of course, Ryan. You were one of her favorites. She always looked forward to your visits. She turned to me. Honestly, I was surprised that you are Jonathan's sister. What he says about you and the person I know are completely different. I smiled. Sometimes your own family is the one that understands you the least. Tiffany nodded. How about we go somewhere quiet to eat and talk about what comes next? I agreed, tears welling up in my eyes again. The three of us got into Tiffany's car and drove away from the venue. We decided to dine at a small restaurant. Seated, I faced Tiffany again. Your grandma, I hesitated. Is she? Well, the last time I saw her was just before she was admitted to the hospital. She no longer needed housekeeping as she wouldn't be staying at home. Sadness appeared in Tiffany's eyes. My grandmother passed away a year ago. Oh, I see, I felt genuinely sad. She was a wonderful person. It was an honor to work for her. She liked you very much too, Tiffany smiled. She always said, Christina is an angel. Tiffany continued. And Ryan too. Grandma always called him my little son. Christina nodded. Yes, I sometimes took Ryan with me. Helen really adored him. Tiffany said nostalgically. Grandma kept all your drawings. Tiffany looked at Ryan. I found them when I was cleaning out her room after she passed away. Ryan's expression was a mix of happiness and sadness. After a moment of silence, Tiffany spoke again. Christina, to be honest, what Jonathan said about you and the person I know are completely different. He described you as a lazy, ambitionless sister. But I remember you as someone who devotedly cared for my grandmother. Christina gave a wry smile. Jonathan and Mom don't understand me. They think that because I only graduated from high school, my worth is low. That's wrong. Tiffany said firmly. Education is important, but humanity is even more crucial. You have raised your son alone admirably. You hold multiple jobs and live sincerely. That is what I believe constitutes the value of a person. I felt warmth in my chest. We continued talking for about an hour more, discussing the past, Helen, and our hopes for the future. By the time our conversation ended, I felt much lighter. Will we see each other again? Tiffany asked as we were parting. I want to talk more with you and Ryan. I nodded. Of course, Ryan said with a smile. 1 year later, in the fall, the beautiful maple leaves were starting to change color. I was standing in front of the new office of Brown Housekeeping Services. The sign Professional Housekeeping and Elder Care shone in the morning light. With Tiffany's support and experience, the company that she and I co-founded had quickly established a reputation in the region. Even without a formal education, my practical experience and compassionate heart had made me a successful businesswoman. My attitude had been conveyed to my colleagues. They trusted and respected me not only for my business acumen but also for my character. We had built good relationships. Meanwhile, Jonathan's life had dramatically changed. After the events at his promotion party, his reputation at his company plummeted. His colleagues saw his true nature and gradually distanced themselves from him. His promotion was revoked, and he was demoted to his previous position. One day, my phone rang. It was my mother's number, which I hadn't seen in a long time. Christina, can we talk? Her voice lacked its previous arrogance and trembled. Jonathan has become addicted to alcohol, she said quietly. He needs help. My mother herself was on a path of decline. Jonathan's scandal had spread through the community, and her former friends had ostracized her from their social circles. The social status she had built over many years had crumbled overnight. She sighed. No one comes to my parties anymore. I remained silent on the other end of the phone. Christina, we treated you and Ryan terribly, especially after Dad passed away. Her voice choked up. Mom, I said quietly. Talking about it now won't change anything. I know, she replied. I was beginning to realize that my relationship with my family was irreparable. I did not desire to return to the old relationship. At least for now, I needed time. Thinking this, I hung up the phone just as I heard footsteps. Mom, hurry up. We're going to be late. Aren't we going to Grandpa and Grandma's place before school? Ryan shouted. Now a lively 11-year-old, he had grown taller and his face was full of confidence. He had been selected as the captain of his school's soccer team and was doing well academically. Coming right now. I smiled at him. I'm coming with you, Tiffany said, popping her head out from the office door. She was working alongside me as a co-manager of the company. But don't you have an important meeting today? I asked worriedly. Tiffany shrugged. It's fine. I want the three of us to go together. Before taking Ryan to school, we stopped at 2 cemeteries, at the graves of my father and Grandma Helen. After laying fresh flowers, we quietly joined hands. I feel like Grandpa and Grandma are watching over us, Ryan said softly. In my heart, I said, thank you, Dad. Thank you, Helen. And I thought about how unpredictable life can be. Once shunned and undervalued by my family, I am now loved, respected, and cherished by my peers. I had found my worth, something that no one could take away. I looked at Ryan and Tiffany, laughing together, and felt profoundly grateful.